Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
How y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Great. All right, we good? All right.
Fantastic.
We get to go.
All right, we're going to kick this off. So what I want you guys to do first is just to introduce yourselves. We have all pastors' kids up here tonight from Victory Chapel in Spring Lake. And we joining us also is Hope Mills, our baby work. And then we also have, Hope Mills is not our baby work, but we have Sanford, our baby work, and then we have Hope Mills, a sister church in the area, joining us also. And so they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to give you their age. They're going to give you, tell you how long they've been pastors' kids. And we'll just go around, starting with Isaiah, and we'll go around that way.
Okay. You said my name.
Yes,
No,
sir.
I'm Isaiah. I'm 19, and I've been a pastor's kid for, 14 years, maybe longer. That doesn't seem long enough, but somewhere around there.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm 15 years old, and I've been a pastor's kid for 6 years.
Hi, I'm Tessa. I am 16 years old, and I've been a pastor's kid for 1.5 years.
Hi, my name's Sequoia. I am 17, and I've been a pastor's kid for 9 years.
Hi there, I'm Israel. I am 17, and I've been a pastor's kid for, 16 years.
It's the Holy Ghost. Praise God.
He didn't say that.
My name is Serenity, and I'm 16. I've been a pastor's kid for 9 years.
My name is Elijah. I'm 16, and I've been a pastor kid for, 16 years.
My name is Luke. I'm 13, and I've been a pastor's kid for about 1.5 years.
I'm Cheyenne. I'm 17, and I've been a pastor's kid for 6 years.
You're shining some rope over there, guys. All right, so cool. So the purpose of the discussion that we're going to have tonight is just we want to talk about, just pastors' kids, some of the myths that come along with it. We're going to talk about some truths that go along with it. Also, we're going to talk about the blessings and the pitfalls of being a pastor's kid, because as we know, as we kind of talked about before, there's been many misconceptions. This conversation, I think, is long overdue to be had. And so I think just we have the maturity level here. We have the experience. As you see, 16 years, at the most of being a pastor's kid is probably over 50 years of being a pastor's kid up on this stage. And so that's a testimony to the parents. That's a testimony to you guys for keeping that testimony. I can speak as your pastor to all of you, and your testimony is good. And so I just believe your experience can help some teens out there, just with life. And so the categories I kind of want to cover, we put some questions out and for you guys, and then just things that we kind of brainstormed about. And so we're going to go through those, but kind of like in a conversational format. And so the topics I'm going to hit is a pastor's kid life, the church life as a pastor's kid, relationships and dating as a pastor's kid, and then we're going to close it off with the myths. And so, and you guys can just kind of pass the mics around how you feel, raise your hand or whatever, and join it and jump in on the conversation. So this is going to be a get in where you fit in type deal. And so I want honesty. I want your hearts to be shared, because I think that's the biggest thing. People respect honesty, right? And so a lot of times what they don't get, or what people don't get from, they don't get this. They don't get this live action conversation with a bunch of pastors' kids where they can actually, get the hardcore truth. A lot of times they go by stuff that they've been told, because even myself growing up, I went off a lot of stuff I was told. And so, we've had conversations about that. So first question is this: what's it like being a pastor's kid? So what's some advantages or disadvantages of being a pastor's kid? Who wants to go first?
It's a very busy life. A lot of the things that you do end up being involving the church. A lot of the people that you know are involved in the church. And then it's like, with school and everything, it's like really back and forth. Like, it's like you're in different worlds. Kind of. Not really. Kind of.
Okay.
School is weird because you feel like there's a major disconnect because you and all the other students, because you grew up so differently and you believe really different. Like, you hear them talk about some weird stuff. You're like, you do that at 14, 13 years old. Why is that a thing you do now? And then like he said, like Elijah said, just extremely busy. If there's something going on at the church, you're there. You know, it's just a lot of, your schedule gets clouded, so you have like not that much free time. But I mean, it's a nice problem to have, I guess.
I was gonna say, being a pastor's kid can be a blessing, even though we don't view it like that sometimes, because sometimes we just get caught up in the busyness and stuff like that. But it's good when you're saved and you're able to understand what God is doing.
Yeah, to backtrack what all three of them just said, it is a busy lifestyle. You practically live at the church for most of your life, or however long you've been a pastor's kid. But it's actually truly a blessing to see how you're different in a sense, and you can go out in public places and people who don't even know you can be like, okay, they're different, and yeah.
I was going to say, one of the benefits of being a pastor's kid is that a lot of the issues that maybe you'll hear from your friends at school and issues that they have in their lives, you're not going to really have those problems. Especially a lot of people either they'll only have one parent, or their parents don't love them as much as they probably should. And I feel like when your parents are saved, a lot of times you don't have to really worry about those kinds of things. I'm pretty sure everyone up here has two parental figures, right? And that's a blessing in and of itself. Like usually, you know, that's the norm, but nowadays it's not. You know, I'm pretty, like most people I know only have one parent in their home, and they're raised in single parent households. And so that's like a blessing in itself, because, you know, as pastors' kids, typically you're only a pastor, you know, if you're married, and then you get sent out. So like by default, we have both parents.
So what do you think are some advantages that you guys have? You think so you guys are saying that it is good to have a two-parent household, but what are some ways that you've noticed that having two parents versus being raised in a single-parent household help?
I feel like there's a big rule difference. It's like if you hear about kids with like one parent, it's like their rules are just like, you got nothing to do. You have like 5 rules. Be respectful, that's very lenient. You know, do your chores, also lenient, you know, like just a lot of other things. And then you hear just like, yeah, I swear in front of my parents. What? Why?
I think it's a big advantage to have two parents, even though obviously every parent will have a different personality. Like overall, men and women think differently, like their brains work differently. And so it's good that you can get raised by both, because like from your dad, you can, as a man, you can learn, I don't know, like the ideals of being strong and being respectable and being all of that. Whereas from your mother, you learn like the things that your dad probably won't care about, like being clean. Not that my dad doesn't care about being clean, but the brain works. It's just, you know what I'm saying, and like the way that you speak, not being raunchy all the time. You learn a lot of that from your mom, and so having both is really a blessing.
Not being raunchy all the time. I got you.
I was kind of go off of what Elijah said, where, you know, like a dad is supposed to teach his sons, you know, how to be a man, how to treat, you know, women, and dads are supposed to teach their daughters how a man should treat them, you know, how they should stand up for themselves, you know, whereas a mom is supposed to teach her daughters how to build a good home, you know, how to be loving. Same thing for their sons, how to love people and respect people. And so if you're raised in single parent homes, you don't get both sides of that, you know, and it causes a lot of conflict. Not saying we don't have any issues. Obviously, we all have our own personal issues that we go through dealing with our parents, but we're protected from a lot more stuff because we have both of them.
Amen. Facts.
I was going to say, kind of riding off what Luke was saying, where it's like I don't think it's necessarily better for us.
Right.
Like, I like to look at it in the way that it's worse to not have both. Because then, you know, like he was saying, they have less rules, and rules aren't as enforced as much. But obviously, you got to understand that it's more difficult to try to enforce these rules when you're doing everything by yourself, especially like a parent where they might not be home as much because they have to work probably multiple jobs, you know, in order to support their children. And then they come home and then they have to be mom or be dad, and it's harder. So then, you'll have children where they don't have as much authority in their lives. So then things that we perceive as like, well, just be respectful, just be this way, be that way. They never learn those things because they can't, A lot of times it's like when you only have one parent, then there are times when you don't have any, essentially. There are times where you have to raise yourself, and that gets very difficult, so we're very blessed to have both.
Yeah, like going off of what he was saying, Justin, like having two parents a lot of the time means that usually one of them is available, that one of them, like at a certain time you can rely on one of them to be there for you, to care about you when the other one's like busy doing something, Like it's just something you can fall back on a lot of the time that you can't really do if you're being raised by like a single mom who's like working 4 jobs or whatever.
I got you. So let me ask you guys this: do you think in in just your general life, you guys talked about business, you talked about the advantage of having 2 parents at home. So do you think people always expect you to be, spiritually mature or mature than you really are? Do you think they kind of expect different things out of you than they expect out of other kids?
I would say yes. They expect you to act a certain way, which none of us really know how that certain way is because we're all different. We all act differently. Sometimes we act like kids, but that's just, we're still kids. We're not adults yet. We still have a life to live. Not saying that like we're going to go get crazy or whatever, but like we still want to be able to have fun and hang out and not have to worry about things as teenagers. Yeah, we're all teens here. Shouldn't have to worry about. We shouldn't have to, like you say, sometimes teens who have adult problems, we shouldn't have to worry about that. We're still young. We still have to go to school. We still have to worry about our own personal stuff and make sure we're straight instead of like trying to live up to the standard.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of times they place a higher standard on us, which there is an essence to us, like as pastors' kids, we represent our parents, so in church we should be behaving, and whatnot. But there has been multiple times where people have came up to my parents and been like, hey, your kids are pastors' kids, they shouldn't be doing like that. And we're just playing like wall ball or something, just being normal kids. And so a lot of times people tend to like nitpick at tiny things when it doesn't really matter. Like us playing, simple games or whatever. Now, sometimes if we're being obnoxious, stuff does need to be said, but there is just a very high standard that none of us really know how to reach, and it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that sometimes being a pastor's kid doesn't always mean that you're saved. Like I was a pastor's kid years before I ever got saved, but like because you have a lot of Bible head knowledge, right? You know a lot of things. You can navigate your way through church life, speak Christianese and all that stuff, right? So there were times but way before I was saved where like one of my peers would come up to me and ask me about a certain situation or ask for advice about something, hoping that I could give them some kind of spiritual advice that I really couldn't at the time because I wasn't saved.
Right. So do you feel like piggybacking on that, do you feel like people expect you guys to know more of the Bible than, even sometimes some adults, you feel like people put pressure on you the weight of your prayers, they come to you with problems and you like, man, I'm just 16 and you ask me about, your marriage or something like that. Has that been something where you guys have had either adults or even some of your peers come to you with some spiritual stuff that you're like, I'm just like you. I don't know what to tell you. Go ahead, Serenity. You got to hold the mic up.
Wait. I'm thinking.
You want me to?
Okay. I was going to say, because I only just recently got saved, about 3 years ago, but I definitely remember people always coming up to me just asking me for spiritual advice, and it'd be stuff about dating or dealing with parental situations or whatever, and they're looking for spiritual advice, and they were like, oh, can you pray for me? And I'd feel guilty knowing that I'm not saved, so obviously I'm not going to pray for them. I'm not saved, you know? But like, I mean, that was just me. Like, I didn't believe in God for a while, you know? So that was like something that like I wasn't going to pray for them. But it was one of those things where like I had to put on this image, like this facade and be like, okay, in church, I'm a Christian. So here you go. Philippians 4:13, you can do all things through Christ. I don't know.
Right. Hold on. So because I'm gonna get into this a little bit in a second, but you were saying even as a pastor's kid, you didn't believe in God, right?
Yeah, no. I didn't classify myself an atheist or anything like that, but it was something that like I seen the change in my parents and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I was just a very angry and bitter person. And stuff had happened to me to where I just like, oh, if God is so loving, why would that happen? You know, typical, you know, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll come back to that. Serenity, go ahead, Alyssa.
I was gonna say that, at the end of the day, we're all human. And so we all make mistakes. And the thing is, we all have to have a personal encounter with God. So we can be in church for how long, and that does not make us saved. Even the devil comes into the church, trying to look for whom he can, just devour. And so it's just one of those things is even inside the church, people have become, pretty much Pharisees, Sadducees, trying to look around. It's like, oh, they're automatically saved. Just automatically seeing, okay, their dad is a pastor, that means their kids are saved. But not taking consideration that most church kids are younger, and anybody can come to Christ. But sometimes you have to be put in situations that, bring us closer to God and such. So, like, it does hurt, when people automatically, like, pretty much just deem you this saved person, just like Cheyenne said. Like, sometimes I'd feel so guilty, because I was not saved. I played the church kid game, But it's just keeping in mind that everybody has to have their own encounter with God, and that we're all human, so we all make mistakes, So that's where repentance comes, so yeah.
Gotcha. Serenity?
You were saying something about, repeat the last thing you said.
Yeah, no, I was saying that people always expect you to be more spiritual than other kids. Like sometimes they come to you with questions about maybe marriage or different things, and you're like, man, I'm just 15 or 13.
Yeah, I've had people do that before, like when they was going through like dating stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know what this is. Don't ask me nothing. Like, I'm not saved at all. Like, I don't know how this best works. Don't. But I would be that friend and be like, oh yeah, you should do this. But it would be like something you shouldn't do.
Right.
Because I was not mentally there, and I did not care about Jesus. Didn't care about none of that. So I just was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's pretty cool. Obviously, for those of you watching, if you didn't know, like, being saved is not something that just falls on you. Like, it is a choice that you have to make. And it's very interesting that you guys brought this up, that people really do just kind of see your family and your connections, and then they're like, okay, so this person is already saved. And it actually is kind of, it hinders your ability to get saved a little bit, because it's like, you're living in sin, and you think it's pretty obvious, but they are saying you're already saved, and they're trying to say all these good things about you. So then it can build complacency in you. You're like, okay, I'm good. But something that really helps, and this is going even back to having two parents and just parents that are in the church and involved and that are under so much watch. There's also an advantage in the fact that, like, I know a lot of people have gone to churches and they see the pastor preach and they try to take what he's saying, but then they're like, oh, but when he goes home, he's probably a different person and blah, 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 and it creates doubts. But being in the home of your pastor all the time, you see how they're still human, and you see the mistakes that they make, but you see, like, wow, they're holding this up. When they're outside of the church, they're still holding it up. And so there's positive and negative factors, but yeah.
Right.
Okay. This is not exactly the same kind of point. I was gonna, like, speaking to my fellow pastors' kids, right? While it's unfair for people to expect more of us, right? Sometimes that's the case, like there's wisdom that comes with being in church your whole life. Like, obviously it doesn't make you saved, but it does teach you things, all right, that people don't know, or that most people wouldn't know. So then there are times where you feel like it's unfair that you have to hold this example just because my parents are saved and they're pastors, now I'm supposed to act a certain way. But you got to understand, like, it reflects on your parents because, like, that's how they raise you. Obviously your salvation is your own decision. It's the way that you live, and it's a decision that you have to make. But you also know that, the way that I live my life, all right, it's not only for me, and it's burdening, right? It's not fair, most kids don't have to, but we do, and it's like, I like, for me, I accepted that, my life is going to be looked at, so if it's going to be looked at, then fine. I represent my parents, I represent my church, I represent the people that, that associate with me, I represent, my fellow believers. So I have to, as however I may feel about it, I have to live a certain way, and I have to, be accountable, and then you may not think that you do, but when people come to you with questions, you may find yourself going, I do know the answer. That's right. Wait, you should ask me. Like, don't ask me, but, in time, I'll be able to help you. There are times, because you might have more wisdom than you might think. My mic is pinging.
Yeah, I don't know whose it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, there's definitely the point that a lot of the time it can feel unfair or feel like a disadvantage for a lot of pastors' kids. But I do think that having that extra layer of expectation really did prevent me from building walls against the church. Because, like, for a lot of other kids, you might see, like, their parents are coming to church and their parents are really saved, but it sort of feels like they're allowed a little bit to be distant from the church. I don't know. It's just a way that it seems a lot of the time. Whereas for me, it was like I had to be not only in the church but involved in whatever the church was doing, and so it helped me to, even though I wasn't fully saved at the time, it helped me to not fully distance myself from the church. I was able to see and remain in the church and see things happening, see people get saved to the point where I actually did get saved.
I was just going to say, I think it's crazy how everybody has different experiences being a pastor's kid, because for me, those expectations definitely made me build a wall against, this goes back to me not believing in God. It made me build that wall against the church, and, like, I really hated being involved in everything. And because I was a pastor's kid, it's an expectation for you, to be involved in a lot of stuff, not just an expectation from their congregation, but from your parents as well. Which, I mean, is not necessarily a bad thing, You do represent your parents in the church. But because of that, so I think a lot of times people don't realize what expectations they're placing on pastors' kids. And I feel like that's where a lot of that comes from. But for me, like, it really did made me build this wall. And it wasn't until that I got saved that it made me realize that stuff was just dumb,
Yeah, and speaking of expectations, while you're talking about them, do you guys feel like your parents expected you to be perfect? Did you feel like that perfect expectation was placed on you?
Okay, so throughout, like, our pioneering days, I felt that, but again, like Cheyenne, I wasn't saved throughout our entire pioneer thing. I felt like everyone expected me to be perfect, expected me to be involved in everything and just be this perfect kid. And so that, like, the weight on my shoulders felt really, really heavy, when in reality, no one really expects you to be perfect. No one's perfect. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. And so it's just the reality of it. But those expectations and just the thoughts people put into your head, you begin to think to yourself, like, I have to be this perfect pastor's kid like everyone else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree that a lot of the time, especially before I was saved, in my own head, I felt like my parents wanted me to be this very super Christian kid. But, like, that definitely wasn't the case, because they would have been, like, way harder on me than they actually were. But in my head, I was all, I can't, ever go to them with my problems, because then they're going to be like, what? You weren't saved all this time? How dare you? Get out of here.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna piggyback off of Israel because my parents never placed that expectation on me. It was an expectation I placed on myself. I don't know why, but I guess it was the expectation and the pressure from, everybody coming to the church, that I feel like I had to be this perfect, super saved, super spiritual person at 11 years old. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, and I felt just like that with Israel. I couldn't talk to people about my problems because if I did, I feel like I was exposing myself, and people are like, oh my gosh, you have problems? You're a pastor's kid. You shouldn't, And so, yeah.
Go ahead, Tessa.
So kind of piggyback on what Cheyenne said and putting perfectionist expectations on yourself. So I haven't really been a pastor's kid all that long, but just being a church kid in general, you have that sort of pressure in the church going you grew up in the church, so you should know how to do stuff automatically, and just and then I would put these crazy pressures on myself going I need to be this and I need to be that, and just it drove me insane until a point where it got really bad, and just how sometimes maybe the church doesn't know it or not, but us church kids, we can have really bad pressures on ourselves because we grew up in this culture going you need to be saved or this or you're going to go to hell. And then you're just oh gosh, it's life or death, that any second you can go to hell. But then you're just God really when I got saved, God really showed me going no, it's not like that at all. It's with grace and mercy, you can really just cultivate that growth and going I can show you what you can do, and it gave me more freedom to be more of myself, and just to see how God can use me instead of me being this perfect little Christian Isabella.
Yeah, I remember one time my dad was all, I think this was a couple of years ago, and we were just riding in the car, and he was you could talk to me about anything, whatever. I don't if you're ever struggling with anything. I don't remember what brought it up, but yeah, it was out of nowhere, right? And he was if you were ever going through something, would you tell me about it? And I felt nah, I totally wouldn't. I couldn't tell my dad about certain things. I'd rather tell you, Pastor Deontay, about things, because it's a totally different feeling, going to my dad as my pastor and then returning home knowing that he's still my pastor. Yeah.
So you couldn't just walk out of the office and be well, good talk.
So I told, pretty much, I talked to you, I talked to Elijah, I talked to Isaiah, but that was pretty much it most of the time, because I couldn't do talking to Dad.
Right. So we know, some people have mentioned, and I don't think it was probably some of you guys even in our youth ministry. We talked about suicide and stuff, and early on last year, and I know some of the teens mentioned suicide. And so, is that where some of the suicidal thoughts may have came from? Just the pressure that you felt on your shoulders, because you guys were talking about, sometimes this pressure gets immense, and it's not really that it's from your parents. A lot of times it's in your own brain, or it's not from other people. And so is that where the devil comes in and lies to you and, really begins to torment your mind? Is that what you guys have experienced?
So for me, I mean, I had a lot of other issues going on that caused that, but that was one of them. I remember when we had moved to Georgia, I was, 12 turning 13, and I was just really searching for an identity, and because I had such this pressure on me to be this perfect person, it just created so much more of a gap in myself. And because of all these other issues that I had going on in my life, it just created bitterness and anger and depression. And because of all those pressures and all these other issues I was dealing with, just kept building up. And then that's where the thoughts just came in. You just be better off dead. Nobody cares if you're here. And part of that was because of the pressures.
So yeah, again, back to me putting pressures on myself. It wasn't really how Cheyenne was going, like, yeah, people wouldn't care if you died. It was more like I wanted myself dead, because it turned into a self-hate thing. Now that I think, of course I thought what everybody else was thinking, but I mostly thought about going, again, the pressure going like life or death. We're like, am I doing something wrong? And then it got to a bad point in my life where I was just like, I wish I was dead, because I hated myself so much, because I thought I was this awful, disgusting, horrible person, even though that was not true at all. It just goes to show how good the devil is at getting into your brain and just telling you, going like, yeah, you're nothing, even though God's right there going like, no, you mean everything to me, because like the Bible says like 4 times going like, you are the apple of his eye, and it just shows you like he loves you so much. And it's like, when I finally got saved and I finally realized that through like my parents actually like talking to me and getting me through all this stuff, I was like, dang, God, you actually really care for me, and I can stop putting these crazy pressures on myself. And I just like learned just about God's main thing is just grace and his forgiveness, and he forgave me for all that craziness I put through my head. It's just like, dang, God, like, just your grace is amazing, because if it wasn't for God, I probably would be 6 feet underground.
Definitely. But the mind really is the devil's playground. Like, he will get in there and jack your mind up. Because, again, I wasn't saved during our pioneering phase. But when you guys had called from, I believe, Chandler or whenever you told us, like, I was mad. Like, I did not want to leave, even though we were going to Hope Mills. Like, I was like, oh no, like, this is not happening. And so throughout that entire time, I was just like telling myself like why am I here? Like, just putting myself down. Like, it didn't turn into like Cheyenne's like, nobody, it's better off without you here, but like a self-hatred thing, like Tessa was saying. And so I began to beat myself up and began to believe the lies the devil was telling me. And like it eventually led me to wanting to take my life, and have tried to take my life on countless times, and times where I've wanted to go in the kitchen and cut myself, and like you'd be sitting in the living room working on your sermon, and I'm like, God, why can't you just let me be, just let me go? And I remember one night I did try to commit suicide, and I woke up the next morning, okay? And I had school,
Obviously,
and I was...
you're here, praise God.
And so I woke up, and I was livid, and I'm like in my bedroom crying, and I was like, God, why didn't you let me go? Like, can't you see I'm like asking you to die? Like, I'm literally asking you to take me out right now. And so I remember I was just sitting there, and it got really quiet. And me still not being saved, and didn't get saved after this, he whispered to me, I'm not finished with you yet. And so I hung on to that, even though I wasn't saved. And I remember like hanging on to that, and it eventually led me to Christ, and just letting me see how much he loves me and how much he cared for me, and seeing like everything I have now, and just like, man, I would have missed out on a lot if I was 6 feet under.
It's it's funny, even like us ourselves, we don't expect all of that to come out of these households, like we were mentioning before, with all of these advantages. Personally, it was like kind of due to the advantages, because I knew that most of the issues that I faced in life were inflicted by my own actions and my own behaviors, because I really did have all these coverings. My parents set good examples. They didn't do stupid things. They told me not to do stupid things. And plus, on top of that, I had church and great church people always being great influences in my life. And so for me, it was like whenever I chose to go and just live in sin, whenever I was outside of my home or outside of church, I ended up facing a lot of frustration, because you go and you try to get all the girls, you try to have all the friends or whatever, and then it's like, whoa, this is really all it's gonna be. And it was a struggle, because I was in my pride. I'm like, oh, well, I'm great. All these people, they love me, and they hit me up on the phone, and they want to come hang out. So my life should be great, but I don't feel great, and I just being frustrated because everybody else has told you what's right, and you try to go find your own right, and it's not right. You know what I'm saying? So you have to accept that God really was right. And so after a while, and you hear sermon after sermon, and the sermons aren't just talking about like happy juice and Band-Aids. That's what Pastor Rosario says. Rosario? Yeah. But they be talking about your character. They be talking about like you need to work on this. You need to look to God in these areas and look to your leaders in these areas. And I didn't want to do that. And so after a while, seeing the example of all these great people around me, I was like, man, I was disgusted with my own character. And it was never to the point of suicide, but it was to the point of like, I was constantly trying to prove to myself that I did like myself because I thought that I was likable in the idea of being likable, but in myself, I didn't like myself. So, but yeah.
Alyssa, go ahead real quick. Let Alyssa go, and then we're going to transition. Go ahead.
Mine's kind of like a mixture of like everybody's pretty much. Like I had like a self-hate for myself, and then I believe that it would just be like people just wouldn't really care if I would have just been goodbye. But because just I really battled like severe loneliness, and I still battle it, and that's one thing that I really have to go to God about, is because the devil likes to play with my mind, just making me feel like, because people come to me constantly. And so having that standard up that, people go to you, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm over here battling something, and I feel like I have to push, what I'm feeling away so I can help somebody else, and just, my past relationships with people, my friendships, just I was so used to, people liking me for a time and then just dropping me like I didn't exist. And so that's why I genuinely believe that like nobody would care if I would be here or not. I felt like when I walked into a room that no one cared that I existed. And so then there was, my self-hate came from insecurities, my acne, I just did not feel, just the hate I had for myself, and just trying to relieve pain. I used my acne as a way to relieve pain. And, I did try to commit suicide once. I took pills before I went to bed. And, I just remember I literally, the moment I took them, I literally cried out to God, and I was like, God, I'm sorry. I said, I do not want to die. And I'm asking, like, can you please, like, your angels, like, that I would wake up in the morning. And, of course I woke up because I'm still here today. And so just the fact that, like, just everything that I've been through brought me closer to Christ. And so it's not like I realized that, like, nothing that we go through is in vain, and I feel like if I didn't go through that stuff, then there would be no reason to have Christ. And so, like, just hearing like everybody's different things that they went through is like, nobody's the same. And so that's why I hope that like as we will answer these questions, that it could just bring hope to somebody else. So that's pretty much just what I wanted to say, that mine was like a mixture of all of them. So yeah.
Go ahead real quick, Luke.
I was gonna say something. It wasn't as extreme as everyone else's. Like Elijah said, it wasn't to the point of suicide. But I would just like lay there, lying in my bed crying. It's like, why can't this just be easy? Why can't the devil just leave me alone? Because I see all these great people in the church. I see my dad as the pastor. I see all my friends, and they're like the same age as me. And they like, how do they have it all together? But I'm sitting here failing and failing and failing. How do they manage to do this? And it's just like, it took a lot of realization, just like praying and reading. It definitely helped that. It's just, you realize it's not easy for everyone. It's easy for no one. Christianity isn't some happy-go-lucky thing. You're not just frolicking in fields with butterflies and rainbows in the air. You're just, it's a struggle every day. But you can't like let it drag you down and just ruin your life. Like it can't ruin your mood. You have to still be a functioning member of society, but you can't like act perfect. You can't think you have to be perfect. Everyone fails sometimes. Everyone has their own struggles.
All right, hold on real quick. I got to transition to church life piece of it. So what's it like? What's it like pioneering? What's it like having to, share your parents with the ministry? Many of you guys kind of talked about, when I was pioneering, when your parents pioneered, you wasn't saved and stuff. So what was that experience like, and what's it like having to share your parents with like the ministry?
Empty seats. That's a very simple way to put it. You walk in, you get ready. You have song service. No song service team. You're using Pioneer Worship, Pioneer, whatever it's called. Yeah, you have like the little
Band in the
rinky-dink,
box. Band in the box.
Instrumentals. And you're just sitting. You have song service. Song service is over. You're done praying. No one's there. It's just you and your parents and your family. You're just sitting there. It gets to the point where it's like after months, my mom was just like, we're here. We're dressed for church. Why not just preach to us? Because it was just time after time, no one would show up. So it was just, we're here. Why not? Why don't you just preach to us? And after that, I feel like it kind of got better. We were seeing more visitors, and the person who was going, I feel like they started going a little more consistently. I was gonna say something, but I forgot it. So.
Serenity.
Yeah, what Luke said, empty seats, basically. When we was in Hope Mills, we had crackheads, okay?
That was not Hope Mills, but okay.
The Merc, that's what it was.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the Merc. We had straight crackheads. And then I did the what was it, the sound booth?
Yes.
The money and nursery. So I did 3 things because I just like doing it because nobody else was there to do it. Please. And then, but yeah. Y'all are stupid. But yeah, what Luke said is basically like just you, your family, and then normally you have like new people and they come and then they go, then they come. It's just like not even. I mean, it's a good thing because like you are getting the word and not just not doing anything about it. Or you can just go out and go have outreach. That's what we did.
Yeah. Pioneering when you're not saved and when you are saved are 2 completely different experiences, but when we lived in Augusta, we had a bunch of crackheads too. Some dude came up to a concert with a saw. Anyways, that's a different story. But
You did say with a saw, not a song.
with a saw.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a bunch of craziness and it was just a bunch of empty seats, but it was also a lot of constantly like outreaching. And like even now, like we're outreaching a lot, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes it can just be like draining. Like, Mom, we've been to Walmart six times this week. People think that we live here. Like the workers are asking us if we're okay because we're here so much, But when you're saved and you're pioneering, you have much more of a gratitude for it because even though like at the moment you're not seeing fruit, you're not seeing stuff, you do know that seeds are being planted. Whereas when I was not saved and we was pioneering, I was like, Dad, somebody might want to kill us here, simply because of our skin color, or they might be trying to sell us drugs. Our next door neighbor was a drug dealer, so I mean, we had a bunch of crazy stuff going on. I mean, it was a bunch of craziness, but when you are saved, you have much more of a gratitude for it. And even though you're not seeing results the way that you want to see, and you hear a bunch of people, pastors who pioneered, and they hit the ground and they go out in their first service, they have like 20 people. And so your expectation is when you go out there, oh my gosh, our first service, we've been outreaching for months, and we're going to have like 30 people show up. And the only people that are there is you and your family. So a lot of times it can be a lot of a letdown, but it's a gratifying experience when you're saved.
Yeah, I asked a 2-part question, so I was going to ask you guys, what's it like pioneering? Then I asked, what's it like sharing your parents?
Okay, so the sharing your parents part of the question. So Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah. Okay. So I remember. I think it was a revival we were having with Leonard Williams. I think. Pretty sure it was. And he had came up to me and he was giving me a word, or maybe he had came to me after and he was like, "You got to learn how to share your parents." And I was in my mind. I'm like, man, bump all these people. These are my parents. Like, what they need them for? Like they gotta cook me dinner and stuff. Like, I said all that in my head. I didn't tell that to the pastor. So like as I got like even like before we were pioneering, like I remember like you guys would get phone calls at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, can you come over here? Like we would have people living at our house, sleeping on our couch. um, so so like as I got older, like while we were pioneering, I began to realize what the evangelist or the pastor was saying. Like, okay, they're my parents, yes, but they're also people's pastor. And so like just because they're my parents, yes, they're going to be there, but they're also a pastor and a pastor's wife. And people need their pastors and pastor's wife for counseling, for comfort, for prayer, like just to like help them in certain situations. Doesn't matter the time, it doesn't matter the, maybe it does matter the place. But they're somewhat required to like help their congregation in a sense.
Isaiah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Sure, I'll say something. Cause yeah, I had to deal with that a lot of times. I didn't feel like my parents ignored me in place of, they put someone in my place. I never felt like jealous. I just was like annoyed, you know, mainly. That was the main thing. Cause obviously, and for everybody watching, listening, all right, for your information, maybe you didn't know, our parents don't tell us anything about what be going on. We don't know anything.
Thank you guys for verifying that. Thank you guys. Everybody in the YouTube, whatever with this goes on, y'all heard that. So say it again for the people in the back, Isaiah.
Yeah. So they don't tell us what's going on. When they have their meetings, instead of being like, wow, man, that sounds difficult, we're like, wow, they've been in there for so long. You know? That's our experience. So for me, it was where I was like, because I had things going on. I had school. I think I was working. I had a lot of things happening. I was like, I need to go home. I'm tired. But I had to understand, these people, they need a pastor to tell them these things, And sometimes, bro, I would get in my mind where I'm like, you didn't need to ask my dad that. You did not. Go figure it out. But, you gotta I had to learn grace. You know what I mean? I had to learn, not to be, I guess selfish might be the word. Selfish with my time and my dad's time and my mom's time and all that. It's just, if they need someone to talk to, that's what my parents are there for, That's what it means to be a leader. So I'm like, you know what? Fine. Go for it.
Yeah. There are definitely times where, especially when I feel that, like, we were at, like, one time I remember specifically in Guyana, Dad was counseling somebody, and we ended up staying after church until, like, 12, 11, something, right? Because they were talking forever, and I'm just, like, sitting around, like, you can't, like, play any of the instruments or anything because it's too loud and they're trying to, handle business. So you're just kind of chilling around, wandering the church, trying to figure out something to do because everybody's gone at this point. It's just you and your brothers and you're just, you can't be, like, moving around too much. But, yeah, and then sometimes, if it's not a counseling session, like, it's still part of the pastor and pastor's wife's responsibility to build relationship with people in the church. And sometimes, I'm trying to get out the door, get home, do something, I don't know. And then they're just like talking to somebody about something that's not all that important. They're just kind of, chit-chatting for like 2 hours. And then we end up staying after church for like for a really long time for a conversation that like didn't really matter, because you have to build a friendship with the people in the congregation. But when none of your peers are left over, it's just the parents and like one other person that they're talking to for something that sounds like not that important, or even like somebody who goes in for counseling and then they come out of counseling and somehow you end up finding out what that counseling session was about or whatever they were dealing with, and you're like, no, not like that. No, not even that. It's like, of course they did that. You just handle that. Like, pray about it, read some Bible, and move on.
No.
So real quick before you answer that, so do you think that comes from your level of spiritual maturity? Because, like you said, being in a church setting, you hear it so much. You're in it so much. You hear so many sermons. For you, it may seem that way. Is that where that comes from? Because you're like, man, it's simple. Pray, read, and it'll be fine. Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, probably.
He said,
So that's pretty cool. I was gonna say something else, but it really doesn't matter. I like this topic. They say the word of God is living, and it's always relevant. It's always applying to your life. So then you can come to church a lot, and especially as you're a kid, you're growing up, you hear the truth. You hear things that apply to every aspect of your life, even things that are way in the future. Like, I know so many things about marriage that I don't need to know. I'm not married.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
but so then your life isn't,
I missed that comment.
your life isn't, in some aspects, isn't that different from the next kid. It's not like you were born a genius, but I think you spend a lot more time learning, because when you do make mistakes and you see the consequences, or when you do what's right and you see the consequences, or whatever, they're laughing at doo-doo. But even if you didn't already know better, you've heard better. And so then as you see those things play out in real life, it's sticking to you, and it's pretty cool. They're talking about sharing your parents with people. Like my brother said, it's sometimes they are really not like counseling. It's not about a problem, but they have to build a relationship because it's somebody new in the church. And so if you want to spend time with your parents, sometimes you got to spend time with your parents, spending time with these people. So you just kind of jump in, and it's like, but you get to hear a lot of conversation. You build a lot of, that's if you want to, or you could go to your room. That's what I was doing like yesterday. But it depends. It depends. So, yeah.
So back to like the spiritual maturity thing you just brought up. Definitely, we technically all grew up in church here. So like I grew up with Cheyenne. Listen, huh? So I grew up with Cheyenne and Alyssa, and so they can testify to this. Like before like we got this building we're in now, we were over there by REA, and every kid was in this big back room. Miss Pam was faithful to make sure we knew everything we knew, like we needed to know. Like even though we were young, like we were already talking about fasting. We're like 5 and 6. We're talking about fasting. We're talking about prayer. We're talking about like sending churches out. And so yeah, when you grow up in church, like you develop like, I don't know how to say it, but yeah, you develop more knowledge than someone who's just coming into church. And so it kind of does affect how people look at you, yes, but it shouldn't affect you. But along with what Elijah was saying about, like, I guess fellowshipping in a sense, have been times I hated going to fellowships. Like, just like, even when we had them at our house, but like still, like, sometimes like that's the only family quality time you'll get, like especially in a pioneer setting. I remember we used to do like these big concerts in a parking lot, or like the Thanksgiving thing we did, and I'm like, bro, in my mind, I'm like, bro, I don't want to be here. It's Thanksgiving. I want to be at my house. I'm like, I want to be at my house. Right.
That's
Yeah,
true.
and so like what Elijah was saying, like that's like the only real time you get to spend with your parents. Like just enjoy it. You have to share your parents, okay? At the end of the day, you have to share your parents. There is no giving it up.
This is backtracking all the way whenever we like transition to this topic. Our church is like right next to a pot shop. Like we go there, we go there. Okay, no, we they have whole bong gas masks in there. It is wild, but we go to church. There's 50 cigarettes on the parking lot. It's Sunday night. We cleaned up Sunday morning. Where did all these come from? They do not clean this parking lot. We can't. Me and my dad. We were going to church, and then we were walking up to the door. There was a needle in the parking lot. Just a needle. My dad did later throw it away, but like. This is the kind of stuff you see. And then one time before outreach, we went there just like get drinks. They had a whole bong gas mask. They had like a whole wall of cigarettes and nicotine. Everything, drugs, just everywhere. It's wild. And then you know.
Why?
It may sound like.
But yeah, about the sharing your parents thing. It's like you have like people over for fellowship. They're over till like 1 a.m. You're like, you guys, we ate 6 hours ago. You're still at the table. You haven't even migrated to the living room yet. I'm just in my room, like laying down, trying to get occupied with something. Bye. Check the time. It's 1 o'clock. And then like one time, I legit fell asleep on the floor. Just they were still talking. We were about to go. We were like, okay, guys. They all started standing up. 30 minutes later, we're still talking. I'm asleep on the floor. Their kids are asleep on the floor. You know, we're all just exhausted. I don't know. It's wild.
Oh yeah.
Legit. But like Sequoia said, we us four grew up together, and so because of that, like our parents are very heavily involved in ministry. So like even before I became a pastor's kid, we were here till like 3 a.m. because our parents are just talking, and I'm like, y'all can call each other on the phone, and like it's just a bunch of craziness. But even with the fellowships, I am an introverted person. Like my social battery goes down very quickly. Like right now, I just want to be at home. I love y'all, but I want to go home.
Right now.
So like when we're at church for like forever, I'm like, how are you guys not tired of each other already? Like, I'm just ready to go home. But like I said earlier, it's the gratifying part of pioneering, like, because they're building relationships. Even though they've known each other for 10 years, they're still building a relationship, you know? And so it's just like whenever I go to Sequoia's house, we stay up till like 3 a.m. You know, it's building a relationship. It's the same thing with your parents. And yeah, growing up in church gives you a lot of quote unquote spiritual knowledge. You know, people coming and asking you stuff, and you're just like, I don't know how I know this, but I know this. Here. Mm-hmm. I'm not married, but here's some marriage advice. Hopefully, you know, it'll help you. You know, yeah, we know so much about stuff that, like, we're not even there yet, but it's because we've grown up in church. So it's a blessing, honestly, that it is, because, like, once we get to that point in our lives, we're somewhat prepared, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, no, those are the arrows in the quiver. I always talk about. You guys know all this stuff, so those are the arrows in the quiver. You got something real quick before I transition? Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just talking about sharing your parents with the ministry. It especially more recently as dad has gotten more busy with church things and stuff. It becomes more like, of course.
Are you guys hot or cold? Hit AC. Hit AC.
It becomes like, of course, I spend time with my dad a lot, you know, but usually it's whilst going about business. It's in the car or at the dinner table. But like those times where you're like going out in the yard to play catch or whatever. That's not really a thing. That's not really a thing anymore. Yeah.
Can I go like real quick? It's like stuck under your shoe or something. So listen, back to those fellowship things. Listen, when you know your parents, okay? When you know your parents and you know you're going to someone's house that they have friends your age, bring an extra pair of clothes because more than likely you're spending the night. You are spending the night. Because if you don't got clothes, you borrowing clothes, okay? I can testify to that. I have shared a lot of clothes.
All right, so real quick, guys, we're gonna transition, and then I'm gonna get you guys out of here. And so I want to talk about relationships, and then when you guys got saved. So just being a pastor's kid, how relatable are you to how relatable do you feel to other teens and just other people in general, in your relationships wise? Just general relationships, not necessarily dating, but it's general relationships with people.
I think that, like, okay, so as pastors' kids, people think that we don't have problems. I have problems. Everyone up here has problems. We all deal with our own stuff. So it's like, so to some sort of extent, we can relate to some people, you know, like I deal with anxiety, just putting that out there. And that's something I know with like 90% of kids deal with nowadays. But like for me, knowing that like I'm a Christian and it's not something that I let identify me, like I can help them with that. Like, no, anxiety is based in fear, you know, and we need to rebuke that, you know, and that's something that like obviously I know that I struggle with. So it's something that like as I'm helping other people deal with it, I'm helping myself as well, you know, and like one, I also deal with like the spirit of rejection. And a lot of people deal with that nowadays as well. And so as I'm allowing God to move in my own heart and help me to like move past things that had happened to me, it's able to help me help other people. It's like, yeah.
Tessa.
So talking about relatability, anyways, just like, it's like you go through stuff and like talking about like rejection and stuff. So when I was younger, I had like this group of best friends, and we would do almost everything together. And then like as we grew up, we kind of grew apart, and then that's how I started dealing with rejection and stuff. And then like. And now, as I'm older, I kind of relate and see people who are just, like, kind of standing in the corner, going, like, I have no one to hang out with. I'm just like, I feel you. But, like, this is kind of an example of how, like, as kids, even though we haven't gone out into the world and we haven't sinned or anything, we can still relate to people with, like, emotional stuff and going, like, yeah, even though I don't live your life, even though I don't do drugs or sex or anything else, I still relate I still relate to problems that you have and just what you're going through, and I can help. And that can probably even be like a branch to like salvation and like witnessing to them and using that as a tool to get to them and saying like, hey, I'm here for you, but also God.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, Israel. Oh, I'm sorry.
I had mentioned earlier that being raised in a Christian home is kind of different from what you see when you're at school. And I mentioned that it was kind of like living in a different world, but I somewhat take that back for the sake of understanding, because, I mean, people, okay, so even though we do things differently, I said do again, please don't laugh, but people in school, like maybe a lot more people in school than in church are going to be smoking or doing whatever they're doing, you know what I'm saying? But as far as the motivations go behind those things, like every single sin that they commit, we are all human beings. We all have the same type of flesh, you know what I'm saying? So you can kind of understand the motivations behind everything that people are doing, even if you're not personally doing them, because you feel those same desires to do those things, you know? And so it's not like we're separate creatures. Like somebody new that I meet at school that is completely living a crazy life of sin and they're doing everything and they kill people, like at some extent we can still relate, even though my life is so much different. We are, go back, not kill people, not killing people, but at some level we can relate because we share humanity. We're still, well, yeah, no, we share humanity. I was thinking because y'all are talking about killing people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to elbow you, but yeah. So when people have different issues, it's cool because you have had the same issues.
Right.
You just know to deal with them differently or to deal with them at all, and so then you can help other people out not because you are a saint, but because you have the problem also.
Right.
But you are going about it the right way, not with killing people. I don't kill people, but
Yeah,
But I can
got
understand
you.
how they feel when
we
they
got
try
you.
it.
Go ahead, Israel, and then we got Isaiah. Yeah.
So first of all, going off of what Elijah's saying, there is definitely we have the same emotions, the same desire to do the same things as people outside of the church, but also sometimes the same emotions and the same feelings or the desire to rebel and things like that will lead you not to do the exact same sins that someone else would do, but would lead you to sin all the same. So all people fall short of the glory of God, and you might have fallen short in a different area, but for the same reason that someone else fell short in another area. And so even if you didn't do drugs or whatever, or what, I don't know, something that you would do because your parents have stifled your life or whatever, you did something else here in the church because you were rebelling against your parents or whatever. And then also, as far as like making friendships and stuff outside of the church, a lot of the time it can be, it's not like hard to make friends outside of the church. Like you can have friends like at school and stuff, but a lot of the time your free time is taken up at the church. So I remember Elijah mentioning that his friends would like invite him to go see a movie or whatever, and he's like, sorry, I got church. And it was so often to the point where they thought he was making it up, that he just didn't want to hang out with them at a certain point. Yeah.
Isaiah, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to bring up the point of like being saved, a saved kid in school, right? Doesn't make you better than them at all. It doesn't. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people seem to think that, I don't know, that they're on some kind of pedestal.
Yeah.
Or, because I know it says in the Bible, you know, you should be set apart from the world, and that's true, right? That does not mean you're elevated above them. Don't you know? I'm a Christian, you sinner. If you, first of all, that I think this is personal. Everyone watching and those here, sorry. If you call people like, yeah, sinner, you're weird, bro. Because you have to understand to have grace with people.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
and you are, and as my dad says a lot, you know, you're the only Jesus people are going to see. You're the only like face of Christianity people will meet, right? In a lot of situations. There are times where I'm at school and I'll meet someone else who's also a Christian, and they be having me like, I'm gonna backslide. You're annoying. Like they are a bad picture of Christianity, where they make me look bad. Like,
Right.
I don't associate with you. Yeah. Oh, we're both Christians. Nah, leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? Because then they're not helping anyone by trying to be better than those around them. They're not helping people by saying, you know, don't worry, I have the answer, bro. You don't know, but I know. Like, no, you don't. You have Jesus, and they can have him also. You are not the answer.
Exactly.
So then people they say, you know, yeah, I have a hard time, you know, associating with non-believers. No, you have a hard time associating, and you start to get weird.
big bars.
Preaching. Hold on, real quick. So with that, I just want to ask this too. So we talked about relationships, but let's go further into the dating piece of it. So do you feel like there's a target on your back where people try to draw you into unrighteous relationships? Do you feel like people try you because they find out you're a Christian or a pastor's kid, and they say, oh, I'm going to make them, you know, fall into sexual immorality. They don't call it sexual immorality, but, you know, they're like, oh, I'm going to pull you, you know, I'm going to get them because, you know, they're the pastor's kid. I bet I can. Have y'all experienced that? Yes.
So I'm not in public school, but I do have a job, and I don't know why, but everyone's favorite topic is, sex, and I don't know why. It's just weird. And all these, everyone at work, all their favorite, and I don't understand it. And these kids, they're the same age as me, maybe a little bit younger, and they're, talking about when they lost their virginity or whatever, and they just looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm waiting till marriage, and they're like, what?
That's foreign to them.
And I'm just like, yeah. And they're like, well, why would you do that? And I was like, because I don't want someone to be in lust with me. I want someone to be in love with me. There's a whole total difference. When you're just sleeping around with people, you're not in love with them. You're in lust with them. You like what they can offer you, And so people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, no. Why would I give myself to someone who's just gonna go sleep with 5 other sneaky links that day? It makes no sense to me at all. And so, but yeah, people they'll think I'm weird, or they'll try to, be like, hey, would you ever have a sugar daddy? No, that's weird. That's disgusting. No, that's just and I'm like, there's just comes a point where this is just more than just me being a Christian. That's just weird. Even if I wasn't a Christian, that would just be weird. But as Christians, we have standards. Everyone's standards are different, but I think all of us here we're all waiting till marriage, and that's something that we have to say constantly because everyone loves to talk about sex for some reason. So yeah.
Luke and then Sakai, go ahead.
Something I have to say about that. I was just walking home from school, and me and my friend we were talking. It came up, but he was talking about high school. Because it's coming near the end of the year, and we're both gonna go to high school next year. But he was saying I kind of wanna lose my V card before I get out of high school. I was like, what? Why? Sir. He was 14. But
Wait, he was talking to you?
yes, he was talking. Not from me. But he's just saying. No, he's just saying. No. He's not. No. He said no. What he was saying, he was like, y'all are weird. Cause he was talking about. He's like,
all right, let Luke finish, guys.
By the time I graduate, I kind of want to lose my V card. I was like, but at that point, I was just like, okay. I just got quiet. I was like, but why? I literally said, why though? What's the point? What is it gonna do? What good is it gonna do for you? That's like Cheyenne said. I don't want to be in love. It's not in love. You're in bed with them.
That was kind of hard. Yeah, exactly.
It.
Hey, Jeremiah, that's the new term, buddy.
You're not a. Elijah,
let him
I'm gonna need to talk to you after this.
Let him finish, guys. Hold on. Go ahead, Luke.
But it's like.
I'll explain to you later. Pause.
It's like you get out of high.
All right, let him finish, guys, because we're gonna have to do some editing. Go ahead, Luke.
You get out of high school and you don't even talk to this person anymore. You see that person you hate them. You see their face, your stomach drops. You're like, oh, them. It's like if you have premarital sex, I've heard it from countless people. It's like, I think there was a story in the Bible, whatever it is. He raped a girl, and then immediately after he threw her out in the street. He's like, I hate you. I don't want to ever see you again. It's like, if you give yourself to that person, that's something you can't ever take back. They have that forever. You can get saved, that door can be closed, but if you step back into sin, doors wide open again. It'll just start all coming back. But if you give yourself to someone before you have made that, it's like a heavenly bond whenever you get married. It's like something supernatural that happens there. It's like two become one, right? It's just a really different whenever you have sex before marriage and sex after marriage. There's just a major disconnect between those two terms.
All right, Sakai, go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to think of a way to answer this question. I wouldn't say I have that problem now. One, because
I rarely see anyone from my school. I'm barely in my school building. I'm just on the college campus, senior. But like I could definitely testify like before the salvation, like I definitely opened quite a few doors. I'm saving myself for marriage, but I have already given myself away. And so I can't just go back and like, oh yeah, I need that back. Like, no, that's not how it works. But like once you open those doors, you're connected to them, and you're forever going to be connected to them. Because it's not just like, it's not words, it's a physical thing. And so like there's no getting that back, there's no closing that door like that. You're one with that person in a sense.
All right. So to piggyback, this is kind of a follow up question to that. So when you were entertaining those unrighteous relationships, if you were, what did your parents say when they found out, if they found out?
Oh, y'all went ballistic. Y'all went ballistic.
No, I was saying, so while you were in those unrighteous relationships, as far as the dating goes, what did your parents say when they found out, or if they found out?
Okay, so when y'all found out, I feel like,
Who is y'all? I'm just the interviewer here.
when my parents found out, I felt like all hell broke loose in the house, okay? Because it was just, when I wasn't saved, when I wasn't saved, I always told myself, once I'm out of here, I'm out of here. I wanted to join the military. I wanted nothing to do with church, with my family. I was like, bump all of them. They are nothing to me. Goodbye. Once I'm gone, I'm gone. Like, I'm gone. And so when my parents found out, a lot happened. I think it was a long time. I got my phone taken for quite a long time, like a very, very long time. Elijah can testify to that. Definitely. No, not like you would try to text me, and I'm like, yeah, bro, I ain't got my phone. And you be like, oh, when you get it back, I don't know. like just definitely. When my parents found out, I really thought I was gonna end up dead. I'm being so serious. I thought I was just gonna have to like move out or something. Like y'all was, I don't know. My mind wasn't there. Again, I wasn't saved, so I thought totally different, but you guys gave me the benefit of the doubt. Like, you guys were gracious upon me. Like, you guys they didn't kill me and like put me out the house and like, oh, you want to do this? All right, go live. Okay, see, some words were said that can't be taken back, but like just out of anger and rage, and I understand that you say things out of anger because you're not thinking, but some things were said and you can't take that back. So
Tessa, go ahead.
So like talk about like how parents react to your like. So I was kind of in a quote unquote relationship, and like my my mom knew, but like it got to a really bad point where I had to cut off communication with that dude. But like when my dad finally found out, he didn't like accuse me or anything. He actually like, asked if I was safe. I was like, I thought you were gonna be angry at me, but I'm just gonna like use this to transition into something else. So the reason I got into the situation was in the first place was because I dealt with wanting to be loved by somebody, because like I hear all my friends all the time going like, oh my gosh, this boy said he liked me, or he liked me, or he liked me, and I put that into self-worth and going like, even like physical beauty, and like if guys aren't checking me out, like am I ugly? And like if nobody wants to get with me, like am I wrong or something? And so like I desperately wanted that relationship, and God kind of like let me have it to show me like this is not what you need, and like it ended up breaking me and his heart. So I'm just like, I just want to warn you guys, like don't let the devil lie to you and say you need someone to have self-worth and you need someone to be happy in life, because no, that is a straight up lie from hell. And I can tell you, I am so much happier now, and I am so glad that that is over, because I probably will regret this for the rest of my life. He's going like, I broke his heart and I still feel bad, but even worse, I broke mine, and just like maybe in a few like trust ties with my parents and stuff. But like now I put on like actually restrictions on myself and going like no. And I just learned that I don't need no man, and all I need, all I need is, all I need is, guys.
All I need is the Lord.
All I need is the Lord. But like, I don't know. I just learned that God's love was like enough to fill that missing chunk in my heart. So, yeah. Just
All
wanted
right,
to warn
cool.
y'all.
Yeah, I think you took it all. I think you took it all away from me. Oh, I was gonna say, like, when you do it, when you go about dating the right way, it definitely like works out 100 times better. Cause my dad, aka the interviewer right here, when he would preach about relationships, he would be like, okay, there's a certain point, like, but before you even start dating, like, there's a high, like, if you need to get to that point, there's a high five moment. Like, okay, there's like a, like, listen, all right, I need a high fiver. Like, hey, this ain't gonna work out. We going our separate ways. We can still be homies. Like, there shouldn't be anything else. There shouldn't be like, oh, I love you, da 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 da, and all this flirtatious talk or whatever. But when you go about it the right way, the end result is marriage and starting a potential family if you want kids or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that thought.
Yeah.
Hey, Isaiah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is a good question.
It's
Any
not,
question is a good question.
because I don't know. So when the high five moment, as you mentioned, you said it's when you can just high five and just be buddies afterward or something. Is that
Okay, so like before the dating stage, there's like
before?
before you even start dating.
Oh, okay.
Like
Word, that makes sense.
you're getting to know each other. So in the world would be the talking stage, but no, it's like I'm getting to know you.
Right.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
like yeah, got to like what he just said. I got to know you and I don't like it. So see ya.
Okay.
You can leave unaffected.
All right, Cheyenne, go ahead.
I was also gonna say, just like the reality of it is that like everybody deals with lust in some sort of way. You know, even as a Christian, like even though like right now, like you might not have interest in anybody, so it's just kind of like not there. But like once you have interest in somebody, you know, that's where you have to like be praying and contending for God, because especially once you start getting in that dating stage, and this is all from sermons that, you know, I've listened to. I think all of us girls here have listened to them, where the pastor was just talking about dating and being engaged and stuff like that. It was like when you're in that stage, you're gonna be even more tempted, especially when you're engaged, to have sex, because you're right there at that moment and you're thinking, oh, we're gonna get married anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it really does matter, because God made it to be holy between a husband and his wife, you know, and so that's why there's such a big deal when you give yourself away to someone and you're not married, you know, so yeah.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
I was just gonna say that like our bodies are a temple, so like everything we should do should glorify God. So, you know, that's not, you know, like Shine said, like having sex and like, you know, populating the earth was created to glorify God. And so if you're just sleeping around with a whole gazillion people, and that's not glorifying God, that's literally trying to please this desire that's in your heart. And so one thing just having to just keep in mind is that, you know, our bodies are a temple, and that everything we do, like, it should be doing like unto God. So like it's just, like you just have to keep it in your mind, like our bodies are a temple. So I guess, yeah.
And,
Go ahead, and then we're gonna go to the transition to the last question. Go ahead.
Real quick, if you have done something like that, or even currently involved in that type of lifestyle, you can still glorify God in giving your life to God. God does not hate you. You're not like damaged goods. God has worked with every single situation, and so as long as you open your heart up to God, and I know it seems kind of pretty obvious, but in case you're watching, or even if you're here and that's kind of like a thought in your mind, just know that God's love and forgiveness is open for every single person who would choose to take it.
Yes. And that leads us into the last question. When did you get saved for real, for real?
I want to go first. I
All right,
want to go first.
Go ahead, and
okay.
then we can go around.
Okay, so I for real got saved at boot camp, okay?
Yeah.
For all y'all watching, boot camp is I don't know, it's a story. You gotta What year was the first year of boot camp? 2018. It's been a minute since cuz we've corona and stuff. So I for real got saved in 2018. Of course, like during that time, like from then now, like I'm not just gonna like repent once. Like I have to repent daily. Like I still make mistakes, but I remember. No, it wasn't 2018. It was my second year. Yeah, 2019. Because 2018 boot camp, I just went because everybody else was going. Like, oh, boot camp was so fun. You gotta go. And I went, did it, and I was like, yeah, whatever. 2019 came around. I had the same male DI, and DI Colonna, or Pastor Colonna from Virginia. He's basically telling my whole life story. I have never met this man. I don't know this man. I'm like, I don't even know him. Like, how is he telling me my whole life story? And so it was we went to the check-in Monday. We drove there. So it was Tuesday night that we were at chapel. I don't remember who was preaching or what he preached about. I could probably find it in a notebook somewhere. But God was really dealing with me. And I was just like, you know what? Okay, God, I'm going to do it. And so I went up there, and I remember like just feeling a weight being lifted off my shoulders, like just being able to feel like I could run like a track race or something. I would never do that. Like I felt like I could do that in that moment. And then I remember like I was literally weeping at the altar, like I was so grateful. Like, God, I owe you my life. I owe you everything. Like all those times where I just wanted to give it up, and just like you held on to me. You never let me go. You didn't leave my side. I left you. He never left me. And so I was literally like just down there weeping, crying, like, thank you for letting me get to this point of breakage to see how much I needed you.
Amen. Serenity.
Okay, I got saved in 2021. Yes, it might sound like I should have been saved like longer, but I just like got saved last year just because I was saved when I got saved when I was like 11 or so, but then I just didn't care about it and just like backslid again for like ever. And then in 2020, I was hanging around a friend that came to the church, and I was doing stuff I wasn't supposed to, so I just was like, whatever, I don't really care. And then 2021 came around, I was like, I distanced myself from her, and then it was 2020 actually, because then I distanced myself from her then, and then I had started being around more people. I think I became friends with him because I did not like this man. I became friends with him. I got closer with Alyssa. I became friends with like more people that were like saved. I still like struggle with friendships because I don't like people, but yeah. But I got saved back in 2020. It was
Y'all looking so hard.
right, like in my soul.
Your story is intense.
But yeah, when I was hanging around with a friend, I had like slipped away from her, but I didn't do it like rudely. I just was like, I can't be around you as much anymore because you're a bad influence to me. I can't keep being around you because I want to be in the church. I want to be in ministry. I want to bring other teens in the church and do stuff. And I bring teens now to church. I bring people from school, which is amazing. So, yeah, it's just wonderful.
Amen. Sharon, go ahead.
So I also got saved at the same boot camp and same year as Sequoia. But I also went in 2018. In 2018, I was like, meh, like I heard the sermons, I cried a little, whatever, went home, didn't care about it. But that was also because I really did struggle in belief with God. And so before I went to boot camp in 2019, I kept having like recurring dreams about like what would happen at boot camp. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just literally like the dreams were just like God's presence literally coming down, and like people were speaking in tongues and people were interpreting. And so finally I was just like, okay, God, if you're actually real, you're going to have to do something for me here. And I told God, I was like, the only way I'm going to know if you're real is if a DI comes up to me and tells me everything I've been through. And that's because I don't open up to people. I don't like being vulnerable. And so I don't open up to people hardly ever. And so me and Sequoia were in the same platoon, so we had the same male DI, but the female DI came up to me, and she just told me everything, like, and I was just like, what in the world? Like, this was stuff, like, my parents didn't even know, maybe they still don't even know, I don't know, and so she was just telling me, and then she just looked at me, she was like, you are not saved, and you need to get right, because you're gonna die if you don't. And that's literally what she just told me, and literally, like, as soon as she said that, like in that moment, I just felt God telling me, like, you might never get this chance again. And so literally that night, the sermon was being preached, and I have no clue what it was about, but I just remember, like, okay, feeling God's presence, and then what happened in my dreams happened that night. Like, people started speaking in tongues, people started interpreting. That had never happened at a boot camp before, you know, and so I was like, okay, and so then the next day, the DI pulled me aside again, and she just started talking and telling me about all my issues. I wasn't even telling her my issues. She was telling me my issues and how to fix my issues, you know, and then that night, she prayed with me, and I accepted Jesus into my heart, and so that's probably the best decision you will ever make in your life, is to get right with God. Even as someone who didn't believe in God, God hears you. And like in that moment, because like even sometimes like I struggle with like, God, do you hear me? But I have to bring myself back to that place of remembrance of when I was at my lowest and God heard me and he brought me out of this dark pit. Like I was just ready to kill myself. And God was like, no, I'm going to place people in your life to show you that I'm real. And it was more than just the DI. Isaiah was a major part of that. He doesn't know that. But he used to ask me all the time, are you okay? Are you okay? And I would never open up to him, but he would always just be like, are you okay? Are you okay? And those people are part of the reason why I'm here today, and it's because they have relationships with God, you know?
Isaiah, did you know that?
That's an exclusive for the podcast.
Go ahead, Tessa.
So you guys already heard a bit of my testimony, but like when I felt like I truly got saved was when I was in my deepest, darkest pits, and my family literally had to like drag me and going like, tell me what the heck is going on. And after that, it was just like a click, and it was just like, dang God, like again with the perfectionist thing and hating myself, like suicidal thoughts, I finally came to the realization that again, like God loves me and his grace, and that's when I finally realized going like, okay, I can actually be a Christian and just, it's not as hard as it looks. It's way simpler than you make it out to be. And just like throughout the years I've learned, grace. But like when I moved here, I've actually started getting a lot more into ministry and actually becoming like maturing in my spiritual walk with God, because like I felt like ever since I've been here, like so many like big spiritual events that happened to me has like just brought me closer to God, and just like I still struggle with trusting him, I still struggle with self-acceptance and self-hate and self-worth, but he's been teaching me slowly that I can learn to love myself and not hate myself for who I was, but what I am and what I can be in God, and that he has a plan for me. And even if I was sure, and even if I was proven wrong, I still can trust him and going like, yes, God, you have a plan for me. And just like, if you're out there unsure what's going on with your life or anything like that, just know that God definitely has a plan for you. And if you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like so unsure, just know that God has a plan for each and every one of us. And I'm kind of sort of rocking on that right now, but I'm still trusting him that he's going to use my life powerfully. So just keep on going, keep trucking, and it's all going to work out in the end.
Amen, Luke.
For me, it wasn't really like a certain event that I remember happening or like a certain cause or whatever. It was more of just like a gradual change. Like back when I was like, I don't know, around like 9, I got saved, in children's church. I was like, oh yeah, that was whenever I was terrified I was going to miss the rapture, I was just going to wake up. I was the only one left in my house. Like I would constantly wake up, Mom, are you there? Yes. Okay, good night, love you. Constantly I would be like randomly, I would just be chilling in my room. Wait. And I would get up. I would get up. I would go like I would like go to my parents' doors like, are they talking? Okay, good. And I went back to my room. I would like walk out. Oh, my mom's there. Okay, and I would go back to my room. Just for no reason, I would just walk out. But I guess
It's like, wait, they're here too.
wait, and then like I guess yeah, around that time is whenever I kind of got saved. But like after that, I didn't really take it seriously. I was kind of on and off. I wasn't really doing what I was supposed to be doing. I just didn't care that much. And then moving here, like in 2020, to start a church, it was a major change. Like I left all that I had known, like my entire life. Like I was born and raised in New Mexico. Well, I wasn't born in New Mexico, but I was raised there for like 11 years of my life. And then, oh yeah, we're going to North Carolina. What? Why? When? Who? It's like just randomly my dad sat us all down. Okay, we're being sent out to North Carolina. It's like, all right. I cried obviously, but and then whenever it finally happened, I was still like always talking to my old friends from New Mexico. I was like just every day, just talk to them. And then I think in like November no, it's more of December and January is I started to get closer to the people here. It's like I actually started to build connections, like make friends, actually want to hang out with them more. And then in the summer of 2021 last year, it wasn't that long ago. It was just more of like over the summer, it's just my perspective had just changed, like slowly turned. And then I guess whenever school started is more whenever it's like it kind of got to the point I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking this seriously. I'm good. I pledged myself to God, it's just, it wasn't more of like an on and off thing. It wasn't how I felt that day. It was, okay, I choose this. I want this for my life. I want to have this,
Amen, Isaiah. And then
Okay. I don't, like, because, the system that we grow up in. So I don't know it in years, like 20, I don't know. But I know it in, like, school years. So that's how I'm going to be talking about it. And so really it was like in my junior year. The junior year was weird because it was my favorite year of high school, right? If I had to pick one, that would be my favorite. But it was also the worst year for my parents. Let me tell you that. I'm sure they couldn't stand me back then. Because even to this day, I'll look back on it and I'll be talking with my parents and we'll look back, man, remember that apartment? That was horrible. It was like, I don't know, maybe it was too cramped. And then anyway, that was just the type of person I was. I was disrespectful. I was a jerk, more of a jerk. I'm still kind of a jerk, but
Amen.
Imagine it was
I'm
worse
just kidding.
back then. How could it be worse? It was worse. And then, I was on the football team. I had a lot of friends at school. I was feeling myself. And then over the summer, I'm getting excited. I'm about to graduate. And you guys know the story. And my parents, they say, hey, guys. Kind of like Luke's story. Hey, guys, come close. We're going to North Carolina.
Of all states, why?
Bro, it was, man, when I said, like obviously, you'd be upset about it. You're leaving. But I was more than upset. I was furious. I could not stand it. We came to the old house before we moved. We come in, it was empty, there was no furniture. I hated that house. I said, this house sucks. This is the worst ever. We come to church. Let's see our new church. Wow. I hate all these people. I was like, it was crazy because I was like I would pick out these things about their character or something, and I would say, I hate you all. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, guys. I love you now, but I hated you. It was just this feeling that I had, this disdain for because I already don't like people that much.
Yes.
And then it was like just turned to 11. Like, you guys, because you don't have a pastor, have ruined my life. It's how it was feeling. And then it was crazy because then I'd go to school. I'm like, look at this new school. This school sucks. I can't stand it here.
Amen.
This is the worst. I have to graduate with all these strangers. Where are all my friends at? And then it was a gradual thing to a point where I'm like, okay, I can't live like this. You know what I mean? Because, a lot of people, they'll say they were miserable. I was mad. I was not sad at all. I was upset. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm going to make relationships with these people, and I'm going to be happy. I decided that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm going to live for God. I'm going to, that's when I was like, okay, who wants to be in drama? Me, I'll do it. Did I? Nah. But, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I'm going to join drama. I was already on song service. I don't really get a choice to be in or out of song service. But, I enjoyed song service. That was back when we had more people here. I was helping out in the booth and stuff like that. I was trying to get more involved because I realized that I can't hate everything, It's just not a good way to live. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let God, take care of whatever issues I may have, and, I'm going to let his love go through me. You know what I mean? Now, that's not to say, because, those things, they come with my character. I still have to work on them a little bit. I don't hate people anymore, but maybe I don't like you as much. But, I still work. I'm not a jerk as much as I used to be, and I'm still changing. I'm still, just working on it.
Amen. Israel?
All right, so my salvation kind of comes in two parts, so I'm gonna go over both of them because they're both kind of important. So, first of all, it was, so I grew up in church, right? And I never left the church, and nor did I, do a whole ton of things behind my parents' back that they don't know about or that they wouldn't have known about even back then. So it was like, so a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with was kind of like, I think it was Paul who was like, when I was a child, I thought as a child and I spoke as a child. So when I came here to North Carolina, I didn't do anything because, in my mind, I'm a kid and, I'm not supposed to do anything. I didn't pray. I didn't outreach. Like when I did outreach, it was just kind of like here's a flyer, get out of my face. Yeah, so I wasn't really living for God at all because I believed that I was a child. It wasn't my place to be involved in ministry at all until and during this time I was placed in song service. I don't even know how that happened. I was kind of just there one time and I ended up doing service and somehow I was on song service. And I wasn't saved yet. I'm in song service. I don't know what's going on, but I'm pushing through doing the Christianese thing, but I don't really care about the church at all until I remember having conversations with Elijah and Isaiah and Jeremiah at certain points, just hanging out at the house. And Elijah tells me how he got saved. And I was like, you got saved. When we, because I never knew, you know. What do you mean? Because when you're living that church kid life, the Christian face mask that you put on is all the time, every day, not just in the church. You know, some people can go home but yeah. So Elijah tells me how he got saved, and I was like, what? Exactly, right? So I was like, huh, I gotta get saved, huh? Right? So right, so I like started going to the prayer room because Jeremiah went to the prayer room, because Jeremiah was the first person I met who was like my age, who was like, he's a real one, like he's in my age range, right? Because one time, right, I'm chilling after church and I see him come out of the prayer room. Nobody else was in there, but he was just like in there praying by himself, and he comes out and he's like, oh yeah, I was just praying. I was like, yo, Jeremiah's a real one. And I was like so yeah, so Jeremiah.
Yeah, Jeremiah's here with us tonight.
So yeah, it was that told me, oh, I can be a actual like force in the church. I can do things. I can get involved. I can actually care about doing song service instead of just being there for some reason unknown to me, right? And so yeah, that was me deciding that I wanted to be saved, that I wanted to be, you know, part of the church. But over the years, especially 2020 was the worst. I was dealing with some severe doubts about huh? No. Yeah, 2020, I was dealing with some severe doubts the whole time about not the existence of God, but the Bible itself. Like, I believed in God because I thought it makes sense to believe in that some kind of creator made the world and whatever, but I didn't believe in the Bible's God at the time. So I was just, you know, I'm dealing with all kinds of questions. I'm a big science fan, so all my science questions about certain things in the Bible are going through. And so, yeah, you know, I'm trying to reconcile these like two parts of my life, you know, the part of me that wants to be very analytical and scientific about things, and the spiritual side of my life. And eventually I found a way to reconcile those things. There is a way you can believe in science and believe in the Bible, just saying, guys. But yeah, so I had to, you know, work out certain doubts in my mind. And while I was going through this, that was actually the first time that I spoke out and that I interpreted a prophecy. And I was like, I never asked for it or anything like that. So I was just like, why the heck? Like, I don't even think I'm saved right now. God just like threw an interpretation at me. And that was when I could tell for sure, like, it was the first time, you know, you could feel it. You're like, oh, that's the Spirit of God, you know? And that was when I knew for a fact that this is legit. And whatever doubts I'm having about it, I'm gonna have to sort it out because I know it's fact. So I'm gonna just have to figure out why it's fact later because, yeah, so yeah, that was how I got saved.
Amen. Alyssa and then Elijah. And then we're going to wrap, guys.
Well, I got saved sometime in 2018. I don't know when, but I actually got like real like converted on March 11, 2019. So I celebrated like 3 years of salvation that just like, yes, yeah, thank you. And so, you know, I actually got saved in my bedroom because, you know, that was like my breaking point where like I just had a lot of stuff that like I had not given to God, and like I already kind of expressed some of like my testimony, and so, but I will say that like the last like years that I've been saved, like it hasn't been easy, but just knowing that like God is with me is literally like it helps so much. And it's been like a year and a half that I've truly like really developed a prayer life where I, you know, set aside a time that I would give to God and give time in prayer. And that's when I started building a prayer wall, because, you know, I needed that reminder that when I wake up, I start my day off with God. Because I realized that, you know, I always had better days when I started my day off, with him, and I even did like a little experiment. What if I like didn't pray? Let me tell you, that day was terrible. But just that, like, over time, I would just end up, texting people like, hey, do you have like any prayers? Because I didn't want it to become a selfish thing where I was only praying for myself. And I wanted to lift up, the other needs of, believers, or just anybody who even if you weren't saved, I genuinely care for people. And because I developed, a prayer life, I'd been given a word from Evangelist McLaughlin, like I'd start to hear God like never before. And that, I'd become a leader within the teens, and that, I'd be set apart. And I'm actually seeing that being played out more recently. And it's just cool that, things take time. That word was given to me literally like in 2020, and it's 2022, and now I'm seeing it played out. And so at the time when I heard the word, when I got it, I was like, okay, an introverted person who doesn't like the spotlight, who doesn't care, like, okay, now you're saying that I'd have some sort of influence in people, that I'd be a leader. And then just like the tremendous blessing that like God has just put onto my life, opening up job opportunities, being able to invest in the teen girls. Like I've been praying and contending like for wisdom and understanding, and just like being able to be there for them, I'm like one of the youngest in Fly. And so all these are like years older than me. That could be 1 to 3 years, and some of them are like a little younger. But just God has just shown me that it's not, he doesn't put an age on it. If you have a heart that's willing to listen and serve God, he can use you. He can use a heart that's willing to step out in faith. And so, now I'll have the opportunity to graduate next year. I'll be class of 2023. And then I will end up getting my permit in April. And then I'll end up starting college in August. And just how quickly that when I just stepped out and just was like, God, here's my life, here's my plan. And it's just, honestly, I do not know where I would be if I was not saved. And so, just like Cheyenne had said, like there's a difference between, since we are pioneering, there's a difference between when you weren't saved and then now you are saved. So I feel like since now that I am saved, that like I have, like my eyes are open, and I see the importance of really, investing in people. And yes, I struggle with outreaching. I am not perfect at it because I still have social anxiety, and I'm just like, okay, but there's one of those things is, we're not perfect, but the thing is not getting comfortable with what we're imperfect about, or what we're still, in sin. And so just giving it to God, but just encouraging you that, growth and change, it takes time. And but never to give up, even in those trials and those seasons, that God will literally get you through it. And just that there's been many people in my life who've been there through thick and thin. Elijah, for example, had been there from like the very beginning, the time like before I was saved, like when I was like battling suicidal thoughts. He like really invested his time. We're completely opposite genders, but the time that he decided to take in me. And then, with Serenity, it was hard for me to open up to Serenity because, it's just like, she's always been there, but it's like, oh my. But now, like, me and her, we've been growing closer together and just forming that godly, friendship. And then, when Tessa came in, and I wanted to be that friend to her, and, just trying to allow God to, use my, imperfections to kind of help other people, and just to open up myself and allow that, like, the things you've been through can help other people. And so that's pretty much just what I wanted to say, is just, kind of just trust God and just trust the process, so yeah.
Good, sir. Close us off.
All right. Forgive me, I might talk for a little bit. Hopefully it's not that long. But
As usual.
Yeah. If y'all didn't hear that, my brother just said as usual. But anyway, don't worry. We learn to forgive as Christians. Let the offenses pass over here. Anyway, so another thing that's interesting, and I think it was kind of brought up before about being a church kid, is that you, especially, so a lot of us here are like first generation Christian home grow. What am I saying? Like our parents, they were not raised in Christian homes. Most of our parents were absolutely not. And then they get saved, then they have us, or if in that order or not. And then we grow up in a very Christian home, right? So it's like this is our, there's nobody before us that we know that was just like us. And so then being in church, growing up in the church, you hear all these testimonies. You hear your parents' testimonies. You hear other people, like leaders in the church, oh, yeah, I used to smoke crack and this and that, you know what I'm saying? And you see how they are now, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. And so from that perspective, like Israel was saying, when you're a child, you think as a child, it's like, wow, those are the most powerful testimonies. When they killed 8 people before they got saved, and now they're this way, that's the best, you know? That's I need something like that. And so as embarrassing as it is, as embarrassing as it is, I think in all of us at some point it's been like, whoa, what if my testimony is not powerful enough because I didn't go do a bunch of crazy stuff? So that wasn't the full motivation behind some dumb things that I did, but it was there. That was just some prefacing, but so I, like I said way at the beginning, I'm 16 years old. I've been in the church 16 years. And growing up in the church, you just do whatever your parents are telling you to do. You don't really think about it. You're just little. But obviously when you get around like 10, 11, you're thinking a lot more, you know. And that was around when we moved here. I think I was I was like midway through 12 when we moved here. And so I had begun to kind of do sinful things with understanding of it, rather than just like being bad as a kid, you know. And then I had an understanding also of who God was to people. And I didn't have my own relationship with God. But at that point, it just kind of built up. It was gradual. You know, you hear sermons on sermons and things apply to your life. And then I remember it was a New Year's night. Otherwise, I would not remember the date. But I think it was 18 into 19. And New Year's night, the show is going on. If you guys don't know watching, we have like New Year's Eve / New Year's Day, big party things. People do songs and performances, talent show. Anyway, another shout out to Jeremiah. We had gone outside because he wanted to talk about something. So I have no idea what happened on stage that night because we were out the whole time just chatting. But anyway, we're just talking about what the little understanding that we did have about our own lives and how that applies to salvation and stuff like that. And we came to the conclusion, after a lot of talking, that we neither of us were really right with God, as long as we had been, because he was raised in church as well. And so that came the first initial decision, you know. But at this point, I'm in like the 7th grade, you know. And so then time goes on, and I'm saved, you know, because I chose. I'm like, God, you know what? I'm gonna give up these things and I'm gonna follow you. But then once opportunities started opening up, you know, I'm getting older. There's more people that want to talk. You know, there's more opportunities to sneak out. I know kind of what I'm doing, you know, and stuff like that. And so those things, they weighed on me. I was like, oh, well, I know I kind of, but this is my chance. You know, I'm about to have the big bada boom testimony. I completely forgot about all that. I was just living crazy. And but like I was saying before, over time the sermons, they beat on you. You know, not in a way that's going to knock you into the ground, but a way that's like it kind of softens your heart towards what God is saying, because you know that you can relate. And so I'm struggling with that. Like, no, I want to live the way I want to live. I don't want none of this church stuff to get in me. It's weird. It's cringy. These people are over spiritual. And I'm just agreeing with all the things that I hear people say outside of church, you know, and trying to do everything that I can so that I can be set apart from the church rather than set apart from the world. And over time, it just got to me. You know, I was like, man, I'm not, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not living the life that I know I should be living. This stuff is not satisfying to me. And I've seen what God can do in my parents' lives. I've seen what God can do in these other kids' lives around me, you know, and so these decisions that I'm making are just not worth it. And so this time it was strong. There was a lot more foundation. This was within the same year. I'm 13 now. Now, I'm not 13 now, but in this period I'm 13 in the period of the story that I'm telling. And this time I come to God again, and it was like after an altar call, Pastor was just talking. He was like, all right, I know some of y'all still ain't saved. I know we just had the altar call, but some of y'all ain't raise your hand or whatever. We're going to get right. We're going to say a prayer. Everybody just say it together, I guess. But I meant that with my whole heart. You know what I'm saying? And from there, it's been a stronger foundation because it's like, I know I'm not just trying to get right with God because I don't want to die not having God. But now it's with that understanding. I know what it's like to live without God. You know what I'm saying? And that is so much worse. And I don't want to have that lifestyle where God is not a part of it because there is a need inside of all of us. And so, yeah. So what's just been so interesting, why I brought up the thing about the testimonies and how I used to think it was cooler to have all this sin in your past. For those of you, maybe you're watching and you are raised in church and you haven't gone out and you haven't had your phase yet where you did all the stupid things, don't do it. Because since being saved, like there is so much more interesting stuff to talk about. Like, I mean, incredible testimonies of just things that have happened since being saved. You know, like miracles we've seen, other people we've seen get saved, things that could have gone a lot worse somehow being prevented. Like Alyssa was mentioning, jobs and whatever just popping up. Your life is just changed. It is so incredible to me that I was trying so hard to like have as many friends as possible when I was in school, and every single relationship was so shallow. Relationships with girls in those types of ways they were just shallow. There was no type of, you know, there was no depth, no solidified, like you could forget about those people if you stop hanging out. And but being here with these people, it has been unforgettable. I was talking to Serenity earlier, just while everyone was talking, but I was feeling the environment, everyone's laughing, talking together. I was like, wow, like I love these people. You know, this is that was me, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, but seriously, like I'm being for real. This is like just a lovely experience. I'm glad we're doing this podcast. It's great to hear everybody and just take some time to be together and discuss what God has done in our lives. But if you are living in sin currently, for those of you who are watching, or if you are considering it, come to God, man. Like really, and let God influence your life and let what you do for God be your life. You know, these memories that you make doing this will be so much more interesting, I promise. You will have a fulfilled life. You will know how to handle your issues with your relationships, with your issues that nobody else sees, with people discuss like suicidal thoughts and things like that. When nobody else was there, God was there for them because they looked to him, you know. And so, yeah, just give your life to God because it's nice that you could, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amen. That's a wrap. Amen. Let's head out, folks.